Okay. And Joe, if you want to introduce the show.
Welcome to the House of Nerd, everyone. Every Sunday, usually we air at 11 a.m. East, but today we're doing a special time, 12, an hour later. For what reason, I could not tell you, but welcome everyone and all. We're happy you joined us. We have some special guests on today. We have a few creators, and I'll let Elle take it from there.
Special time today because, I've been trying to experiment with the times since Sergio's away, and just to see what is it like to live on the East Coast and not have to do the show as soon as I get out of bed, usually. So that's hence the special time. But I'm not really liking this time slot right now. I don't like it. It feels like a little bit, it's like a little bit too early, but it also feels a little bit too late for me personally, so maybe back to 8 o'clock next week.
Pacific time, yeah.
Yeah. So today we have Philip, Detroit's very own, Uvu, or whatever. And we got Richard from BLAM GLAM. His Kickstarter is live right now. I'll drop the link for that. We have Chuck SATTERLEE and Jeremy. I didn't ask you how to pronounce your last name, and I apologize.
I'll tell you, it's MEGERT.
MEGERT, okay. From, I'm sorry, I just blanked. Monsters and Midways.
Yeah. Which that's hitting stores in what's the date?
The end of March.
March 29th.
It's in preview.
March 29th.
Previews right now. You can still order for a couple of days. You can still order issue 1. We'll get into that.
Yeah, that was in the January's previews, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want me to talk about it?
No, that's a lot. No, I'm just kidding.
All right, thanks for having me.
Bye.
So, well, Monsters and Midways is, like you said, it's in January previews right now. Thank you. That's the order code for Jeremy's cover, which is on the left. The order code for Ben Templesmith's cover, which is an homage to Heavy Metal #1 from 1976, is the same order code with a 1 at the end instead of a 0. Essentially, Monsters and Midways is, you could break it down to this. A heavy metal guitarist from 1976 Chicago hasn't gotten very far with his songs about magic and elves and wizards. So let's see how he does with the real thing. It's a sword and sorcery book set in Chicago in the 70s, but spans pretty much all time. And we jump around a lot. And Jeremy here is the artist.
Mm-hmm.
And he is great. Do you want to talk about it, Jeremy?
Well, I mean, I guess there's a kind of a specific question. I mean, you kind of covered the basics for the book, for like the plot and everything. So,
anybody have any questions? It's a 5-issue series. It's from Band of Bards. It's a lot of fun. I hope you guys. One of you guys said that you had read it. Did you enjoy it?
Absolutely.
Phil? Yeah.
Okay.
There's one quick question I had as we're starting, because you mentioned it's on Band of Bards, and when I was going through your timeline, Jeremy, I noticed some of your earlier stuff had Second Sight label on it. So what's was it originally supposed to come out on Second Sight, or did Second Sight fold into Band of Bards? What's the story there?
Well, first of all, I thought I deleted all those. Clearly, I have some work to do.
Oh, okay, sorry. Never mind. We'll edit this. Oh, wait, we're live. Shit, sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Originally we had signed with Second Sight, and we talk about this, but we don't usually kind of specifically say what it is. But it just ended up not working out with them.
Working out, okay.
And
I see.
And so we ended up having to leave Second Sight, and Band of Bards ended up being where we landed. And there was a lot of other shenanigans kind of in between that with trying to get stuff worked out for publishers.
Okay.
And, this is definitely getting a book out. It's definitely not a straight line from, like A to B to C.
Yeah.
It has been,
Yeah.
a long...
I think we're on J.
It has been a long and winding road to get Monsters and Midways out into the world, and so we're just happy that it's finally coming out.
In the previews and ready to go. That's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah,
Nice.
Second Sight hasn't solicited in previews for over a year now, and we'll leave it at that. And then we went to another publisher, great guys, really nice guys. They accepted the book. It's just that they had some, and I don't want to name who that is, but they had some internal issues. Not anything bad. They're good guys. It's just they had to kind of restructure some stuff, and so we were there for about 6 months waiting to go. And then finally that publisher said, oh, it might be a while longer. So then we were talking to Tim at Band of Bards, because I had already placed Christopher Kubrick and Matilda Save the World from fucking Nazis there. And Tim and Chris were like, well, come on here. We want it. And so yeah, how many publishers have we been accepted for Monsters and Midways, Jeremy? 4?
5.
5.
Yeah.
Wow. So this looks,
5.
you guys
Like,
had this done and ready to go for a bit, and just
and that's
ready to get it out there.
You know, with it too, is because when we were talking to the publisher before Band of Bards, we were like, look, like, I mean, when you guys read issue 1, I mean, I drew that a year and a half ago. You know, so like that's not like brand new art for me, like by any stretch. And when we were talking to that previous publisher that we were with before Band of Bards, we all really liked them. They do great books, but it just came down to like, look, we can't wait forever. Like, we can't just sit on the book until, like, with no time frame or anything, with how long we've already worked on it. I mean, at that point, it's like, you know, like, I'm a co-creator, but we have 2 other people that are on the book that are freelance. And so, like, those people were paid. And so, you know, like, Chuck paid those guys, but then we're just sitting on a book and we can't sell it. And so we basically gave the previous publisher, we're like, look, C2E2 is the hard deadline. Like, you got, like, if you can't give us by C2E2, then we got to go somewhere else. And so fortunately, you know, it worked out with Band of Bards. And so, I mean, C2E2 is like, the book comes out like on March 29th, and C2E2 is like 2 days later. So it'll be really awesome, because it'll hit stores, and then we'll be in Chicago at C2E2 repping the book and having a great time.
Yeah, for sure. You guys want to return on your investment for sure. Like you said, you have people paid. You have conventions coming up. You got to push that book. You got to get the book out there. You want your sales, right? So you know, you have deadlines you want to meet too, right? So it's perfectly understandable. Yeah.
It's you know, the small press comic book world is a rough world to navigate through. You know, there's tons of really good people, but it's I don't think there was anything nefarious in our path to get here. No. But mistakes get made. You know, you mentioned sales. Sales are tough to do in the small press world. You got to really hard. You have to hustle hard. You got to have a hustle game like no one else. And you know, sometimes the publishers themselves don't have quite the hustle. Band of Bards does. Devil's Due does. I'm pretty happy with them. Extremely happy with them. But yeah, it's just, you know, you never know. Just because you sign, it's so weird. Just because you sign an agreement to get a book to market does not mean your book will get to market.
Yeah. And I think we've been seeing that throughout the industry now. There's a bit of a transition going on right now with a lot of different companies. So I think, like you said, a lot of companies are restructuring, kind of adjusting to the market right now. And it's great to see your book coming out. It's in the previews. You sent us a review copy of number 1, read it. It's awesome. And so right away I went on Jeremy's timeline to go see, and can't wait to see that Cadillac make an appearance, man. Love those shots. It's awesome.
And that's like, we want people to read it, you know, because like we worked really hard on it, and we have you know, we have a great colorist, and we have a, you know, literal legendary letterer on the book, which is crazy. And so I want the book out in the world. You know, I'm ready for everybody to be able to get their hands on it and to share it with people.
Yeah. Well, hey man, you got a dude with a huge axe killing people that drives a Cadillac. I mean, what more do you want? I mean,
I
right
know.
there, that's a selling point.
I mean, I'll buy it.
Well, thank you, Richard. I will now back your
Yeah,
Kickstarter.
that's good. And I loved your and I love the Brayfogle Batman homage you did, man. That was great. And that's how I found out about Chuck. You did your Kickstarter a while back with the of Bitter Souls, and that's how I first heard about you. I backed that one. I saw Norm's name on that, and I was like, "Oh shit!" So so
Norm fan.
yeah, I know.
Well, you know what? If I think if you're not a Norm Brayfogle fan, there are two options. One, you have no taste, or two, you're just too young. You know,
hey, he's my Batman, man. That's my Batman. Yeah. Alan Grant and him. That's my Batman.
My God, yeah. Alan actually. I call the I call the omnibus the big book of death because Alan passed away after he wrote the introduction. Norm passed away in 2018. Brian Augustine has a short story in there. He passed away this past year. It's just a big book of my old friends dying.
Yeah, well, I remember you delayed the release because Alan was having health issues, and you held off a bit.
Well, we needed the introduction, and this is my first Kickstarter. I've made every mistake possible that you could make. For instance, the books were supposed to go out like a month ago. Now that they're all here, they're going out like almost immediately, like in the next couple of days. But that's because I bought the wrong size box. I bought 100 something 9 by 12 by 2 boxes because this is an oversized slipcover hard case. You know, like an absolute DC book, and I bought the wrong size box, and I tried to negotiate to get because Richard knows the margins you're at are so tight, so I tried to negotiate a return for a refund, and I couldn't get it, so now I had to reorder 10 by 3 by 12 boxes so I can bubble wrap them. There wasn't enough room. I didn't think about the bubble wrap. I've made every mistake. Yeah. I will say this: if I do another Kickstarter, I'm going to rock that shit because I'm gonna have made every mistake. You know.
So you guys didn't do a Kickstarter for this book? You guys are releasing now the Monsters in Midways. Did you?
We tried.
You did try. Okay.
Well, So this is my second book. The first Kickstarter I did, you could chalk up to a failure on every part because of me. I did not plan it well. I thought I planned well, but I did not. And there are certain things you can't chintz on. The video. You can't mess around with your Kickstarter video. Our video was terrible on Monsters and Midways. That's all my fault. And I screwed that up. But you know, we will probably do a Monsters and Midways collected like that thing after it's all said and done. But
nice. Okay.
You know, for now, it's just trudge along and let's get the book out. The book comes out March, like I said. Oh, and at C2E2 there will be a cool metal cover of the Ben Templesmith
cover
variant. So it'll be actual metal. I think I've seen one at the. Speaking of companies restructuring, the Aftershock booth, I thought I saw a metal cover. They're pretty cool. So,
I think Scout usually has some metal covers.
What's that, Al?
Too. I think Scout usually has metal covers too. Because I think I have a couple from Scout metal covers.
What date is
feel good? They're like I hear they're really cool feeling when you hold them.
Yeah. What date is the convention at again?
Oh, that is the end of March. So it is March. 31st, April 1st, and April 2nd.
Okay, so if people can go see you guys there and pick up the book, try to get their hands on a metal cover there.
Yeah, we'll have a table for Jeremy and Nick and I in Artist Alley, and then the Band of Bards will be exhibiting as well with a booth. So we'll be at both. I don't think there'll be a
Nice.
minute of that show where we're either one of us are not either at our table or at that booth.
Hmm. Perfect.
So there'll be three of us there to man it. So we should be able to do it. But that's Monsters and Midways, man. And
Mhm.
Jeremy, you guys mentioned that Cadillac. Jeremy, we've talked about this a number of times, but Jeremy is the king of research, and he does not like you know it's a Cadillac because we talked about this on another show, but because you see the logo. The logo is drawn right. I mean, he just
Yeah.
puts everything into his art. So, and then our colorist, holy crap, he's so good. Nicholas Michael. So yeah, it's a good book. I hope everyone likes it.
Yeah, I'm
Me
interested
too.
I'm interested to see where the wizard character goes because he's quite the he's probably one of the more interesting characters in the book, right? He's aloof or whatever. You know, he's been around for a while and definitely evolved with the times, right? Yeah, he's a fun character. Yeah.
He's a big fan of tacos.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. There's
Yeah.
a taco scene. Yeah. Like
He
wondering if they changed owners because it tastes different, and then like it leads to the question, how long have you been alive for? And it's fun. Like he's definitely a really fun character.
he definitely could work on his people skills. So yeah, we have three
Yeah.
main characters. There's Kessler, the wizard. There's Dave the barbarian, and then there's Kat the maker. Kat is an interesting character because makers are specific to our mythology and Monsters and Midways.
Mhm.
You've got gnomes and elves and wizards and everything, and a whole bunch of different, from Tolkien to Hellboy, But
Yeah.
we have makers, which are a creation of our mythology, and makers are essentially, well, I guess you could kind of. Peter Dinklage in Thor would be kind of a maker, or in the Thor mythos in the MCU because he makes magical weapons. So I guess we're not the ones to create makers after all.
Okay.
That's basically Monsters of Midways. Like I said, 5 issues, and we're really excited.
And you also have, and that's available March 29th. The B cover is also in the comments. I threw the number in there a couple times.
Thank you.
Yeah.
To order.
Temple Smith. Yeah, he's great.
And you also have coming out the Claims Adjuster.
Yes, the Claims Adjuster. That is coming from Devil's Due Comics. It's interesting because Monsters and Midways is coming from Band of Bards, and Band of Bards are kind of like the new guys on the block. They've only been around about a year and a half, 2 years. Devil's Due, they've been around for 22 years now. They're one of the oldest independent publishers out there, and they're also Chicago-based, which is where I live. So that's really nice. I get to see the publisher Josh Blaylock in person. Claims Adjuster is the scripts are written by me, co-story by Neil Van Antwerpen, who's drawing a book that I'm doing called No Other Gods, also from Devil's Due later this year. And then the art is by a industry newcomer like Jeremy. And I'm really lucky because Jeremy and this artist, Laura Helsby, are insane to work with, fantastic to work with, both Jeremy and Laura. Laura is like our friend Richard from our happy friends over on the British Isle, and Laura is just wonderful. They draw pretty fast, and they're doing a great job. The colors in the Claims Adjuster are Leslie Atlansky, and the letters are by Chuck Molley. And the book is essentially, I guess you could say, the Claims Adjuster is Seven meets Falling Down meets Marvels. And you could basically put it this way: a claims adjuster at a long-standing claims adjuster at a company specializing in superhero battle damage, property and casualty coverage, an insurance company, has seen far too much suffering, far too much collateral damage, people losing their jobs, their livelihoods, their homes, their lives, their legs, their arms from superhero battles. I mean, think about Man of Steel, the movie, right? That battle between Zod and Superman in Metropolis, that had to be billions of dollars in property and casualty damage. Not to mention, it's got to be thousands, tens of thousands dead. Am I wrong?
Yes.
Those buildings falling and then the crunching and everybody within the circumference of that pounding thing as it got bigger, they're all dead, you know.
Yeah.
So
they show the scene where Bruce saves the one kid, but you got to think of how many other people from that building crashing died in that sequence, right?
In that sequence alone, it had to be a couple thousand people.
Exactly. Right? Yeah.
And so he works at a company called LRW Insurance, which during the day I work at LR Windsor Insurance, so there's where the name came from. And he has a secret in his life, and he has decided he's a meticulous guy. He's a claims adjuster. He has spent 16 years looking up and going to the aftermath of battles and studying, and he has figured out every superhero's identity, every villain's identity, and he's decided they all need to go violently. And so he's a serial killer who's going to take out every hero and villain in the city, and he's really, really good at it. This is a dark book,
not based on a true story.
No,
loosely based.
No, I am not a claims adjuster. I'm a salesman.
Yeah, that's it. Chuck's gonna get a knock at the door. Like, we'd like to ask you a few questions.
I am fairly happy, and
fairly,
and I don't want to kill that many people at all. It's like the list is this small, so, So anyway, but I'm not even going to go there because, legalities and all.
Yeah.
Plus, everybody. Look, here's the other thing. Anybody and everybody that I've killed, they all deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they all say.
It sounds like such a cool book. It's like that other take, like when Marvel when they were doing Damage Control, wasn't it? It's a very different spin, the other side, and I love the way that this person wants to eradicate both the villains and the heroes. It's completely, that sounds so cool. I'm up for that. And all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I've just texted my local comic book shop, John, and I've said, right, I need Monsters and Midways. Now I need this one as well. So he can sort me out for that.
Well, thank you. Because the order cutoff for the first issue is pretty soon. So, I do appreciate you having Jeremy and I on now to talk about Monsters and Midways and the Claims Adjuster. Thank you.
Oh, anytime.
I have a quick question for Jeremy, because like you said, there was a lot of delays trying to get this book published. Did you do like 2 issues and then you kind of held off till you got picked up, or did you draw the entire book through and then?
I didn't go full through it yet, just because I didn't know what was kind of going on with it. So right now I am over halfway through issue 4.
Okay. All right. So are we? Because I'm really curious when stuff like this happens, because sometimes as an artist you evolve, right? You pick up new tricks in this.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to see a bit of an evolution in your visual style throughout the book, or is it pretty consistent from 1 all the way through 5?
I think you'll see a change. I tend to kind of push pretty hard in terms of where I'm at skill level wise.
Okay.
So I don't really ever. I don't like to stagnate as much as possible, if I'm wording that correctly. So, I think you'll probably notice a lot of growth even, through issue 1 and then issue 2 and then kind of the same thing through the book. And even, as as you know, even in issue 4, for me, there's a difference in the pages that I drew sort of like early on and the stuff that I've done like halfway through.
Yeah, because I noticed on like books where artists work on longer arcs, like let's say 25 to 50 issues, you really see an evolution in the artists, right? Throughout the book, through the 50 issues. And usually a shorter series, you don't really see that because usually, you know, if the series comes out over 5 issues, the art usually stays pretty similar. But seeing as how you've had time, like you said, it's been over a year now that you started issue 1. So, you know, you've probably been doing some other stuff on the side too. So I was wondering, like, throughout that time, like, obviously you're as an artist and, you know, you've probably grown quite a bit and picked up some new tricks. So that'll be really fun to see.
Yeah, definitely that. But then also the other thing, and I think people don't always are as aware of it, like when you start drawing a comic book, you know, you draw the same characters and you draw them from a ton of different distances, close-ups of faces, far back. And so what ends up happening is, you know, you can prepare to draw a book, you know, and draw a character 20 or 30 times. But honestly, until you're like on the page, drawing them actually on the page, that's when you really learn how to draw them, and they change sort of on their own. And like Kessler is a great example of that, because Kessler is probably the character we spend the most time with in the book. And, you know, like Kessler's got this this vest that's like a wolf fur vest or whatever. And, you know, trying to make it sometimes, like, to keep an interesting silhouette for a character, right, when they're in, you know, sort of jeans and a t-shirt, like, that can be difficult. So, like, you know, I basically gave Kessler's, you know, wolf fur vest like a big collar, and so it kind of changes shape a little bit. And I kind of tweak it depending on like what mood he's in, you know, and he's got like big bell bottoms and stuff like that. But, you know, there start to become like shorthand ways, and all that stuff evolves, you know, kind of as you draw the book, like just in terms of shorthand and like what details are important when you're close up, and then what are less important when you're, you know, when you're pulled back, whether it's a medium shot or like, you know, it's a full body shot that's like back even further and that kind of stuff. So
awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Thank you.
And now
I'm hoping a few thousand people are looking forward to seeing it.
Forward to it as well. Yeah.
Hopefully shows like this will help. Thank you.
Well, we hope to help as well with our legion of watchers, 5. But but for sure you got us fine.
Well,
you know, Elle, you're literally one of the first people I ever met on Twitter. You know that, right?
Yeah, actually, it's really cool. I think we touched on this the last time you were on. It's really cool to see all of this stuff finally coming out, because like way back in the day, in the early days of 2000, I don't know, when was it?
2021,
something like that. He actually sent me like what would you call it? Like, it was like a pitch packet.
Yeah, I started watching the show, and Elle, I think you are like my 7th Twitter friend, and because I paid no attention to Twitter till I came back to comics, and so I just saw I really like your taste, and so I reached out to you and said, hey, can I send you all my pitches? I just would like to hear your opinion, and I did, and you were fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah, and what was really nice about it is sometimes people will send you stuff, and I don't like to be rude, or I don't even like to give constructive criticism, and so I was like, I hope I like these, and I did like them, so genuinely, so you made it very easy to respond.
Well, that's good news.
So it's really cool to see them like actually come to, you know, a physical, you know, manifestation now. So that's congratulations on all of that.
One of my favorite comic book writers these days is because of you, Krista Faust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never would have probably picked up. I probably never would have picked up Hit Me without you, and then I think the other one was Redemption.
Redemption, Bad Mother.
Bad Mother,
yeah.
But I'm a big fan of hers because of you now, Elle.
Yeah, that, and you know, apologies too. He just happened to be on the episode where it was the Paige splash with the dongs. She was fighting with the, and I was like, he would be on this episode. You know what I mean? But yeah, Hemi was probably one of my like top 5 last year. I loved that.
That was
series.
really good.
Great ending.
was
Love
really
that
good.
comic.
Yeah.
I was so excited to read that. Each time, go down, pick up the next issue. I'm terrible with names, so until you said "hit me," I was like, "Oh yeah, now I know what you're talking about." Yeah, really good book.
Yeah.
A quick question I always like to ask creative teams, like Chuck and Jeremy, you're co-creators on this book. So how did you guys meet? How did you hook up and get this project off the ground?
Ooh, I'll let Chuck tell this one. He tells it better than I do.
Oh, well, in a nutshell, I had seen his art, kind of gotten sent in that direction by a friend of mine who's pretty well known, and he said that he was already on his radar, and so when my friend is Phil Hester, and so Phil.
Oh yeah.
Phil is
Yeah.
Phil likes Jeremy's work, and if Phil likes it, I'm immediately okay with that. You know, but then I talked to Jeremy. I reached out, and we decided we were going to do a book together, but it wasn't a good time. I don't think I was set in my mind yet, and then COVID hit, and so during COVID, I got bored and I wanted to do comics, and I reached out to my neighbor Nick, who's a good buddy of mine. And, you know, I tell this story a lot. I'll try to tell it quicker. A lot of the time when you're in comics, people will say, Richard, you guys probably all know this because you're in some way, shape, or form connected to comic books, but you have people who are not, and they know you are, and friends, family, whatever. And they go up to you all the time and they say the words that immediately start your defense mechanisms going, which is, you know, it would make a good comic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
That's where the drinking starts to get a little heavier, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Nick, being a good pal, he did that, and I immediately was like, boom, because, you know, most of the time when people say that, they're people you like and care about, respect, so you don't want to like blow them off. You know, you're like, oh, hey, that's really nice. You know, work on that, and then come back later.
Yeah.
You know? But he started going, and I was getting ready for my, that's really, and then I was like, that's not bad, you know. And then I was like, that's okay, that's pretty cool. And then I found myself thinking, he is the seed of an idea here, you know.
Yeah.
And so we worked on it together, and then we called Jeremy and like, hey man, what about this one? And Jeremy was cool, and he's on board, and here we are, you know, 700 something days later or so because of the damn delays. But yeah, we worked together.
That old classic mime there with the girl who's like, oh, that's kind of like your interaction, like with the pitch.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, oh, yeah.
Exactly. But Jeremy and I, we work really well together, I think. In fact, it's funny you talk about teams, because we literally just had a talk this past week about the kind of climactic battle. When I worked with Norm, I had kind of complete, you know, trust in him because, you know, he was Norm Breyfogle, right? And so I ended an issue with a note that said, "Hey Norm, 8 pages of fighting, have fun." And that was some of the easiest script I ever wrote. And
his action sequences are phenomenal.
Yeah, and so I checked in with Jeremy this week because I was like, how do you want to do this? Because I'm of the mind that you got this on lockdown. I feel like I should just write fight, you know, and or do you want to choreograph it? And Jeremy was like, no, I'll choreograph it, but if there's anything specific that you want to happen during that fight, just let me know, you know?
Yeah, so just like if you have a beat you want to follow, just give me that one beat and I'll work around it kind of deal.
Yeah, so Jeremy is going to have some fun in issue 5, like a lot.
There you go.
You know, he gets to do once.
we get a little taste of it in that first issue, right from the start, where he first gets that axe there, and he gives that good chop and slice there. You get a feel for what the action's gonna be like later on, because those are a beautiful few panels there. I like that
thank you.
action sequence. Yeah. And Phil Hester, I think you co-wrote a book with him, if I'm not mistaken, right? 13 Steps, I believe it was called.
Yes. Wow. You've been alive a long time.
Yeah, I've been told. My beard's not so long right now, but when it is, man, I'm getting close to Santa Claus status now, man. It's crazy.
I wrote a book with Phil, and I've been friends with him for a long time. He's kind of like my comic book mentor. If I have a question, I go to him. If all of my contracts for the creator-owned books that I work on come from Phil.
Nice.
He's my sounding board. He's one of the nicest people in all of comic books. And when I say that, I could tell you a story, but I doubt that he'd want me to tell it. So, because he's that humble, so I won't tell it. I'll just simply say that if there is a better person in all of comic books, I have yet to meet him. Because Phil is the salt of the earth. He's the greatest guy, period, in comics.
Yeah, I've heard that from a few people, so you're not the only one.
Yeah. It would simply embarrass him to tell the story, but that piece. Let's see. That piece was in the Of Bitter Souls omnibus. That was drawn by Phil, and
It's a pinup.
It's next to Brian Augustine's story in the omnibus, and it's penciled by Phil and inked by Jimmy Palmiotti.
Oh, nice, good team up.
Yeah. So. In fact, I thought it was the first time they had teamed up, but they realized after they did this that Jimmy inked a cover that Phil did at a tiny little publisher before they were Phil and Jimmy Palmiotti. Before they were well known, he had inked a cover that Phil had. They didn't know each other, but it just worked out that way. But they figured out they had done one piece together before.
That's always interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Funny. Good stuff.
Yeah. The artist of that book, 13 Steps, is Kevin Mellon. He went on to, I think he does art direction for that show on FX called Archer.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Great show. Love that show.
I haven't seen it yet, but and I'm pretty sure he was the art director on that Hulu MODOK animated show.
Okay. Yeah.
So Kevin's
with
things.
Patton Oswalt, I believe, does the voice acting for
MODOK
on that.
Yeah. So Kevin's a decent artist, to say the least. So I've been really lucky.
Cool.
And we also, not to cut, I'm not good at segues, so segue to
segue,
yeah. Richard, Blam and Glam.
Oh yeah.
Blam
Yeah.
and Glam number.
Is this where you say insert segue here and
Yeah,
then it just
insert
sort of
segue.
click the button and it happens? Sorry, I'm coughing a lot at the moment. I'm on my second bout of antibiotics for a chest infection. So sorry if I'm ruining the stream. So Blam and Glam is in its 6th issue at the moment. It's crazy. I mean, much like the guys. I mean, you were saying about how you work full time in another job, and I'm the same. My daytime job is in advertising. And it's funny you say when people come to you with ideas, I get the same thing but for advertising. They're always like, "Hey, I've got an idea for an ad," and I'm like, "I need beer. Bring me the beer quickly."
Exactly.
I can avoid it. But you're right. Sometimes there is a gem, so you have to politely listen. But,
wade through the shit to find that one good.
Yeah. And usually it's like no, and then you're like, hang on, what did you say? What? And you're like, you have to back it up, and So the Blam and Glam is this crazy comic, which I mean, I originally was going to do comics back in the 90s, and I was learning how to draw, and I was terrible. A friend of mine who I went to school with, he was brilliant. And he's been drawing comics independently for years. But I gave up and I went into advertising, and then gradually I found my way back. And it was before the pandemic. I was creating this crazy character, Blam and Glam. I just had the idea of apocalyptic future sort of thing in London. Didn't know much more about it other than that, and I started painting the character and doing a sketchbook. And in the end, it got a nice building on Instagram, and I pushed it out as my first Kickstarter. And you're absolutely right, Chuck. It's about saying what do you do with the first Kickstarter so you learn for the subsequent ones. And I think I did quite a lot wrong on that one as well. But you learn a lot, and people got into the sketchbook, and then all of a sudden the pandemic happened. Same thing as you were saying, the pandemic happened, and then I had an alternative. I had a setting then for Blam and Glam, which was an alternative pandemic. I mean, the guys on the call didn't know about this before. It's this, instead of it being a virus, it's a wave of demons. So it's not a pandemic, it's a pandemonic. And it was a way to flip the events, what was going on. And before we went on the live stream, we were chatting about different politicians, and we was talking about Boris Johnson. And there's an alternative version of Boris Johnson in the comic. And whereas it was about stay safe because of the virus, I'm using the same thing, and it's about stay safe because of the demons, and it's quite a nice way to do it. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It's the art is not suitable for work, but actually the content I don't think is like that. I think it's more about a crazy character woken up in the middle of this pandemonic that's happened, and they don't know. We have to learn about the world through them. And you know, Joe and Elle are both in the comic. They're both on. They're in issue 4, and they're about to make a comeback in issue 6, which should be quite cool.
You finally
basically
get to wear the suit. Huh?
I just hope you kill me with dignity and respect.
Oh yeah, you two got quite a good death coming. But basically, each kicks. I tell you what, is the audience they love to buy it in a big way, like to die. And we've been doing Be in the Comics since issue 3, and I think the first 3 people wanted to be taken over by demons, and so they were dead already. And they were like, yeah, sign me up, I want to be in. You guys are signed up to be resistance fighters, which is quite cool. You know, there's a big set piece, action piece coming in 6 where, you know, you get to buy it with one of the other characters you've seen in there as well. And it's quite interesting. I mean, the comics, I don't know if you can see, but apart from, there's a really nice print, not by me, by a friend of mine. This is covering a whole load of boxes. These are all spares of the issues, because I basically, each time I did a Kickstarter, I did like I think I did 2,000 in the first issue, and I gradually reduced it down.
Oh, whoops, hold on.
Go.
Sorry about that, I accidentally.
There you go.
But yeah, it's so that each subsequent person who backs, and if they're new to it, they all still got access to first editions, which is quite a nice way of doing it. But you know, the first 5 issues are here. Sorry, I always get it wrong. I should redo mirrored version with the camera. You know, issue 1, 2, 3, 4, where Joe and Elle make their first appearance, and
That's
5
cool.
as well. And they're all painted styles by me. It's a very different style of comic. Same as the actual pages themselves. They're painted inside. I use an iPad, and it's how I found a way to draw. And I remember I was talking to a friend long before I got to the comic phase, once I got the first Kickstarter out of the way. And I said, I'm really stressing because I can do the covers, but I'm not got my ink style ready for doing the stories. And my friend Adam Buxton, he said, dude, why are you going to ink it? You have a painted style. Why don't you paint it? And I was like, you know that thing you said, Chuck, where your friend says something, and it's like, that's a pretty good idea. And I was like, yeah. So then I found my style, and it was easy because I started painting on the train. I paint on the commute to and from work, and so that's how I could do it. But I was lucky. I mean, I'm not very good with publishers and things like this, and actually, it's for me, it's working to get my own stuff out in my own time. But when I was trying, I remember I did the first Kickstarter, and this guy in Canada, AOD Comics, who does special covers with people. He always pays for people to do a special edition cover with him. And he said, "Are you interested in doing cover for me?" And I said, "Yeah." And we worked out a price. And he said, "What's the name of the comic?" And what's the name of the company? And my brain went, I haven't even got one. And I reached out, and there was a box. I put it here. This box was in the same place, right? And this was from a friend of mine who sent me some miniatures to start painting. I've still got to open them up. He sent me some Warhammer miniatures, which I used to do. And on the front, he always takes the piss out of me. And he said, and he didn't address it to me. He addressed it to 𝐬𝐿𝐴. And the minute he wrote 𝐬𝐿𝐴, my brain went, "That's it. I'm going to do 𝐬𝐿𝐴 comics." So, hence, we've got that as the banner. But it's quite cool, and we do like standard issue comics, which is the most affordable ones. These are about £8 a comic. The postage is quite affordable. But then I'll do like red variant. There's always a red variant, which is a slightly different cover. And then I've started partnering with other artists, and a guy called Bang Bears, who's amazing. I reached out to him and said, "Could you do a cover for 5?" And he did, and he's coming back for 6 as well. So it's quite a good way of doing it. And there's one other thing we do with artists is each time we try to do stretch goals, where I reach out to artists I connect with on Instagram, and I'll say, "Look, we've got £100. Can you do an A5 ink drawing of my character? Whatever you want to draw, it's up to you. The level of time, detail is entirely up to you." And we always get an amazing spread of them, and then we just do them as random drops. And that's one of the, it's one of the stretch goals. I think we're going to have 3, if we make the stretches this time, which I've still got to type up, we'll have 3 to give away. So it's always good to do that with the art. But we've got another aspect, which is figures. I've always wanted to do figures. And so this time there's a guy called Retro Gimmick who I connect with on Instagram, and he did a bootleg figure where he adapted it. He does the standard painting one. This is the standard painting one, and it gets shipped out. And this is what I call, it's like Star Wars. This is the one back. So this has got the first character on it. I then did a special bespoke version where I did the paint job this time. So it was, I kind of do miniature painting and miniature things. So that way we had a slightly different, more detailed one, but it also comes in the acrylic case. And we're doing a second figure this time, which is a different costume outfit, which plays in with the story. But also, then we offer the stuff up again. So it's quite nice. I'd like to do some of the bad guys, the demons, but there'll be a challenge because they've got 4 legs. So it could be crazy. But yeah, I mean, I'm blown away by, issue 5 was incredible. We did the launch with the team here on House of Nerd, and it was amazing. And we've just done the launch two nights ago. And already, I think we've beaten where we got to the same time last time. So it's building, and it's just incredible. I didn't know anything like Kickstarter existed before, and I can see why people use it. It's so cool. But yeah, that's me.
It's interesting the times we live in now, because I've done essentially 2 comic book careers, and the first time there was no crowdfunding, and now we live in a golden age of content production. That doesn't necessarily mean it's all good content, but if you want to make a comic book these days, you can. It just depends on your hustle game, I'm actually considering Kickstarter full time after these books are done, and just not doing any more publishers anymore.
It's a great way to do it. I mean, I know some people that have launched on Kickstarter, and then 2 issues in, they've then gone with a publisher, which is cool. The only thing is that they've then had to wait something like 9 months to finish a couple more issues before they can launch it. I think that was the put off for me, because originally I was going to do BLAM and GLAM as a 8-part graphic novel. I was going to do it in one go, and I'm glad I didn't. Somebody said to me, "Do it issue by issue because you build." And you're right. I mean, there's even the big, some of the image people will create theirs on Kickstarter, don't they? And then it gets then picked up afterwards. So it's amazing, Chuck. I mean, if we didn't have this, I don't know how I wouldn't have never got into it.
Like a good example of that is Old Boy. Old Boy was picked up by SourcePoint, and they're still running their Kickstarters for all their issues, and then SourcePoint puts it out for them. So they have their Kickstarter for each book, and then SourcePoint does does a version as well. So even though they got picked up by SourcePoint, they never stopped doing their Kickstarters for each book.
Yeah, and that depends on the publisher you go to.
Yeah.
If they're good with that or not. But yeah, it's a great thing. The other problem that you can run into if you're doing both Kickstarter and publishing through a traditional publisher is, and this is not me being, I'm not trying to knock the retailer world, but a lot of retailers will say, it's an unfounded theory that, oh, because you've already done a Kickstarter, you've reached your saturation, therefore I'm not interested in purchasing, you know?
Yeah.
And that's a battle that is, you know, depending on who you're talking to, it's a battle that's winnable, but there are retailers out there who just simply won't look you know, they think that because you did your Kickstarter that everybody who could ever possibly be interested in the book has already purchased it.
There definitely is overlap, but I don't think there is as much as people think there is.
There's not nearly as much as people.
No.
Think there is, you know, people that are going a lot. I would venture. My LCS feels the same, but I would venture to guess that less than 5 or 10% of the physical human beings walking into an LCS back Kickstarters.
I definitely agree with you there.
Yeah.
And I think it's more near the 5% than the 10.
Yeah, it's a small percentage, and so it's a tough battle to wage, you know. But you know, if you can pull it off, great. It's tough to do both Kickstarter and publisher at the same time. There's just also the other thing is, for instance, if you're doing Kickstarter, the people doing the Kickstarter deserve the book first. Like I can't sell this. I got a show that's coming up on February 11th, and these books got to be out the door before then. Those new boxes got to be in, because I can't sell it in good conscience to people at a show when the people who backed it haven't gotten it. You know, so
I respect that completely, because I've had issues with a bigger company. I've touched on it before, so I won't say who it is, but I don't back any of their Kickstarters anymore. Because my comic shop had the hardcover I ordered through Kickstarter 2 months before. I could have had it 2 months and I could have saved on shipping. You know, like, and shipping to Canada, let me tell you, it hurts. It's almost the price of the book. And I was like, dude, I helped you guys. I gave you money up front to help you get this project off the ground. And all you do is prioritize the publisher, like the retailers. So where's my incentive to help you?
And then
you know,
send
like,
you an email advertisement for it. Like you shouldn't have already had it.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm talking about. You got to protect you got to protect the backers, or else you're not. You're also losing your own credibility and your own you know, your name. I mean, in the end, we all have our name, and that's about it. You know.
Yeah. But I like how you touched on how making comics now is more feasible for everyone. Like Richard was touching on, like he paints on his commute to work with his tablet. Like creating comics digitally, especially for people that have full-time jobs. Like you don't have to be sitting at your desk anymore. Like it's easier to find little moments to put time in to get these pages out. And I think that's helped a lot. Like the digital medium has helped a lot for, let's say, artists to work on their pages and get it out and be able to have a job so that, you know, you have an income coming in at the same time while you're working on this, you know? So, I mean, there are some definite big positives from that.
That's also affected the cost of the collector market for original art too, because there is I would bet that every month there is probably less than 15% of what used to be original art going into the
original
world.
Pages. I
know, like for instance, Phil still draws on paper, you know, but like Jeremy, you're 100% digital. You're doing a few actual pages now, right, to sell?
Yes. So I ended up going digital before Monsters, and so the way it would work is I would, you know, pencil it and ink it traditionally, and then you got to scan it in, and then you got to get in Photoshop. You got to like clean up the scan because I mean, unless you have like an insanely expensive scanner, like scanner
Yeah.
print, right?
Yeah.
You know, there's going to be noise and just any small hair fuzz, and you just can't get it all off. So like you have to do that digital cleanup, and then so right there, just alone of like the cleaning of the file and the balancing of the levels and everything else, and then the distortion ratios because you scan it and the scanner distorts it, and all of a sudden your faces don't look right, and you're like, this is weird. And
the colors don't come out right sometimes too, or
yeah. Well, for me, it's I'm just in black and white, but like just that part, like that right there for me, you were talking minimum an extra hour of work on a page. And when you start to think about 200 or like 20 to 22 pages in a book, 10 to 12 issues on a page, or 10 to 12 hours on a page, just drawing it, not even layouts, you're talking 200 hours of work. It's like, and then you're stacking an extra hour to an hour and a half on that. And I ended up going digital because the computer I got, the desktop was getting old, and it just couldn't hang. It couldn't hang with Photoshop anymore. And I was like, it's cheaper to buy an iPad than it is to buy a new computer. And so I got an iPad, and then I found Procreate, and Procreate was $10. And I was like, this is nuts. I was like, this is crazy. It's like, it's like, and I get it done, and it's like, and it's perfect. Like, and it's really funny because our colorist, Nicholas Michael, he was like, dude, he's like, your files are so ready to go. And I was like, that's right, they are. I was like, they are ready. I was like, and he doesn't have to mess with it, and he can just open it and he can go. And it saves me time and it saves him time. And I started actually doing layouts traditionally, again, at Phil Hester's recommendation. and it kind of like made me want to start doing a little bit of traditional work. So like so far I have one page from issue 4 that is penciled traditionally. And so, but with that, I'm still going to do a couple where I'm going to try penciling them traditionally and then scan them. And then I'm still going to ink them in Procreate so that way, like I can have a little bit of traditional art, because like I do miss that, like being on an actual page.
Yeah.
But then I still get the benefits. And then like, I know that like, I don't have to balance the levels or whatever. And I'm used to all the tools, and I don't have to like, go spend, money on inking tools. Cause that's another thing, when you do the traditional work, you're probably spending a like minimum of $100 on art supplies an issue. That's for me just on art boards. Like, I don't even know. I can't imagine what Richard spends on an issue. Like if he was to like paint all those, I mean, that would be crazy.
I mean, it's like the approach you got sounds amazing, because you still have the original pencils. Mm-hmm. And then, as you say, you've then traced it in Procreate, which is amazing. The other thing I love about Procreate is it will store a time lapse for you, so you've got an immediate piece of social media content. Yeah, people can see everything you're creating. But I was going to say, Jeremy, did you get yourself one of these?
I do not have one of those, but I need one.
Do you know what? This was a total game changer for me, because before this, I mean, I haven't got my iPad in here; it's separate at the moment. Before this, I was trying to fit on the screen. Mm-hmm. And the minute you got this, you've got all that space you can then rely on with your hand to lean on. Oh, it's a total game changer. They're worth it, and also they're interchangeable.
What is that called?
Inserts. This was a Sketchboard Pro.
Yep.
And what's great about it is you buy the tablet, which also has legs on it for a stand, so you can work against it. I usually work like on my lap, but I don't know if you see, but there's like a rubber insert, which is the piece that holds the iPad. So if you then decide to upgrade to another iPad later, you literally unscrew these and you buy the new insert. And it's just flexible. So I've gone from an iPad 11.9 recently to a 12.9 just by upgrading. I mean, I already bought an advanced disc because I knew I'd be upgrading at some point. And the board is just a total game changer. But the stuff you said is absolutely bang on. You'd have an amazing piece of art. I mean, I did one page in issue 2, which was this was a real oil painting. Unfortunately, this is a scan, but the rest is all digitally painted, and so somebody could buy that actual page. and I'd love to.
Wait a
do
minute,
more
the
of those.
original's over your right shoulder, isn't it?
No. So this is an A2. It's similar. This is an A2 oil painting. It was one of the rewards for issue 5.
Oh,
So 3 people backed an oil painting, and it's almost ready. This has been varnished, so this is going to ship off soon. But you can see the sort of style it's got. It's got the same approach, and that's what I find is people, even if it's not in the comic, that they're interested in the art style. That's where it's quite cool. But I'd love to do what Jeremy says. I'd love to do the pencils, and then scan. I mean, it's different because I paint over everything digitally, so I'd obliterate the pencils in the end. But it'd be lovely, be really good.
But I've seen a lot of your ink work in drawing, and I'd like to see you do like maybe a shorter story, maybe as in future issues, maybe a backup story or a bonus thing, just inks and stuff. Because I dig your line work with your inks and stuff too.
There was one panel, and it was me reusing an old image I did before. It's one panel of 5 here.
Yeah, I saw that.
And I used this was like, but that's a Procreate ink. And I thought I've always wanted to use that drawing, and I got to use it in the end. But yeah, I mean, I'd need to practice inks more. I do A5 inks and ink covers for people. So they do. There's one waiting to ship out at the moment, which is, but I've still not found my style yet. But yeah, I'd love to do more of it. But the painting one is, I'd say it's easier. It's easier for me to correct, is what I should say, because I'll make a lot of mistakes as I go, and I just paint over.
Yeah. There's something I wanted to touch on, seeing as how we have a couple artists in the house here. The last few years, the comics industry has gone through some controversy about, one was NFTs for a while that everyone was complaining about. And I can understand the appeal of NFTs for people that work digitally, because then you can offer something like you said, you don't have original art, so you could sell stuff off. So I could see the appeal there, but then there's the other side of like environmental, this and that. And just recently, there's a new controversy that came in that's been,
AI.
it's cooling down now, but the AI, yeah, exactly. I was wondering if you guys had an opinion or a take on that. What, because it sounds almost like straight up plagiarism to me. I don't know.
The funny thing is on the, just quickly on the NFT, because I keep getting lots of people, they'd reached out the past 2 years for NFTs, and I was like, I like the idea there's some places it can sell on and the artist can get a cut of it, but the idea that someone wants to buy a JPEG, I can't get my head around it, right? or a GIF. My brain goes, you can have the JPEG for free, you know, when you search for stuff. But the AI one is interesting because I look at, there's some stuff I've been liking on Instagram. I go, that's amazing. And then the minute I've checked the hashtag and it's AI, I've unliked it. And it's because the finish is incredible on lots, apart from when they've got like 7 fingers and stuff. The finish is incredible and stuff, but they're running algorithms when they're saying what they want it to be and then follow this style of artist. You know, and somebody reached out recently and they've got an amazing thing where they train AI to draw your character and stuff in the same way. And they said, look, I've got this thing ready to go if you ever want to do it. And I said, thank you very much. But I while it looks amazing, I think you're missing the human element to it. You know, there's a lot of mistakes I make in my paintings. When I look at it, I go, I'm glad I did that because it adds something
character
to it didn't have. Yeah. But I don't know about Jeremy and Chuck.
You know, here's my thought. I mean, the NFT stuff, I didn't read into a lot of it. You know, I know about like a little bit of like the environmental impact and stuff like that. It's not something I'm personally interested in. You know, technology is always evolving, so who knows where it's going to go. And I get the whole idea of, you know, being your sort of like digital footprint and so the idea of owning things digitally, I understand the argument to that, but it's something I'm not personally in. You know, here's my thing with the AI art. You know, and I know they're going to have to look at copyright law and what's copywritten and what's not, you know, because Superman's S, trademarked. You know, Captain America's shield behind Chuck, trademarked. But you know, can you trademark the way Greg Capullo draws a nose? You know, probably not. I don't know. You know, and that's one of the things that they've got to figure out. And but you know, you see a lot of people being like, oh, I made, you know, and there's a couple things where they're like, you know, oh, I made this AI comic book. And it's like, well, it's not really a comic book, because there's so many things that don't work, you know, that you have to understand if you're going to tell a story on a page. And I saw this one that was going around Twitter, and it was like, I looked like holiday. It was like around Christmas time, and it was like, you know, paintings of people, and it's like snowing, and it's like it's like a bunch of different people, and it's not really a comic book, because there's no story being told in a sequential manner from panel to panel. But when you see a lot of these where they're like, it's an AI comic book, it's a collage with words. And I'm not saying that to be derogatory, but that's what it is, right? It's the idea of what's missing is the storytelling element, you know, where, you know, somebody walks into a building, you know, or they walk towards a building, you know, in front of them is the building, behind them is the car they got out of. They walk in the door, behind them is the door they just came through, in front of them are the people they're going to talk to, right? That is what is missing from the, you know, the AI comic books. And, you know, there was the AI Batman trailer that the guy made, right? And, you know, it was, you know, storyboarded or whatever. And, you know, there's 2 shots of Arkham, and it's different buildings. It's like, it's like, well, that's where the lack of understanding of storytelling comes in, when you're like, you have 2 establishing shots of the same building, and it's different buildings, you know. That is where that you know, the people that are messing with the AI kind of are missing the point.
The continuity of like logical, and like a lot of this is you're teaching software or programming, and like they say, they load in a bunch of artist styles, like you said, like Greg Capullo, can you copyright the way he draws a nose? But then these AIs, all it is referencing things that already exist. So if you create something, how could you say, oh, they copied my style and I'm going to sue you because you well, because the AI copied everyone else that posts stuff on the internet, right? More or less. So I don't know. I just don't see. I mean, like Richard said, some of the stuff comes out beautiful as a single image, like you said, like for a poster or something. I could see maybe the value there, or maybe working out ideas to give you feed off it. You know, like you punch things in, see what it comes out with, and kind of gives you ideas. But I don't see it being a viable way to make an entire comic. Like you said, you pointed out many of the flaws and shortcomings of it. And I don't know, what I read was a lot of artists didn't realize what they signed up for when people reached out to them and asked them permission to use like some of their stuff, and I guess that became an issue too with some artists.
I think,
I
was just thinking, as far as NFT goes, it's kind of like the idea of NFT is like this shining house on a hill. It's a neat idea because the theory of blockchain, I guess, and I'm not an expert, but the theory of blockchain technology is that Richard and Jeremy, or let's say Jeremy and I with Monsters and Midways, if you sold a Monsters and Midways #1 NFT, right? You could the idea is that let's say somebody buys an NFT or a Monsters and Midways #1 at a show, or a Glam and Bam, right? At a store or something, and now they take it, they put it in a bag and a board, and a couple years later, Jeremy goes nuts and is now the artist of Spider-Man, and Monsters and Midways is now worth $200, right? #1, and then, so that person goes in and sells Monsters and Midways #1 for $200. Does Jeremy get any money from that sale? No. But if someone a couple years later sells their NFT of Monsters and Midways #1, as I understand it, the blockchain technology will end up putting some money into Jeremy's wallet. I think it's
so. It creates like a royalty kind of whatever. Okay, I see.
It's only on certain ones, and I think it's most of them.
And in that sense, NFT is not a bad idea. But then you have all then you have all of the other aspects Jeremy mentioned, for instance, the environmental issues, the energy that it takes, and there are arguments for and against. But so as far as NFT goes, I think right now we have to just, I think as an industry, as a world, we just need to wait and see what's going on in NFT. As far as AI art, that, in my opinion, that's just whack, and that is stealing from literally people I know. I'm probably the most connected guy you've never heard of, and so I guarantee you that there are people that I know that are getting ripped off by AI art, and that's just whack and stupid and terrible and wrong and nefarious. And I think AI art is shit and deplorable.
Yeah,
because I can see how you're saying like the NFTs for the aftermarket, because right now there's no real way for you guys to profit from the aftermarket.
No,
I can see how, like you're saying, the NFTs, if they could figure out a way to do it, like you said, to reduce your footprint and stuff and make it more viable and environmentally friendly, I could see how it could be beneficial to the industry as a whole, because creators could then still profit from their creations years after you put them out, right? Like,
I mean,
without necessarily having to re-release or like crowdfund to go, like, let's put out a special edition hardcover. So every time that comic sells from one person to the next, it trickles down to you, right? Whatever percentage. Yeah.
That's a great idea. I'd love for that to work, but there's just a zillion things wrong with it that are in the way right now. But I think if we wait and see, then I think we might have an NFT world where it might be okay.
To me, oh, guys,
it's like, do you remember this Jim Lee's X-Men cover? This one. Yeah, I remember there was a story about this recently, and it was part of the NFT. I don't know if it was part of the NFT discussion, but it was something quite interesting. This was one in every 5 pages goes to the inker, and I think 4 out of every 5 goes to the pencilist, so they can then sell it. It's their private collection, and this was one that went to Williams, Lee and Scott Williams, right? And it's like when they've got those pages, they then sell them. It might have been like a couple grand or something. And then there was an auction with this one in, which was something like 50. I'm probably gonna get it wrong, but like 50 grand. And do they get anything for it? No, because as you say, it's already gone into aftermarket.
Exactly.
And so there is, and so it's a good thing if you can find a way back. But they still haven't got the model right.
Yeah.
Well,
I've talked to Phil a few times, and Phil's seen some of his pages from Green Arrow and Swamp Thing and stuff go for ridiculous prices, and he's like, man,
it's flattering, but man, wouldn't you like to have a little bit of that coin come back your way?
I suspect he's a little bit depressed at the same time. Like, wow, it's really nice that I'm worth that much. I just don't own that piece of art that I made.
I think
it's great. It's crazy that someone.
When you look kind of at so when you think about like the music industry, right? Because they've had like format changes, right? We went from
exactly.
We went from LPs to cassettes to CDs, and you had artists in the 70s, and like Led Zeppelin was a great example of this. They were like, well, we're not really going to sell any more records. We're not making any more. So they sold the rights to their stuff. And then all of a sudden cassettes came out. And then everybody that bought the LPs was rebuying the cassettes. And Led Zeppelin was like, well, where's our royalty money? And they were like, well, you don't own it. And they were like, well, no, but the music is still ours.
It's a different format. Okay, yeah, I see.
Right? And so then you had the same thing. You had cassettes to CDs and then to digital. And, when you look at all these artists now, right, like Bruce Springsteen sold his catalog for, what was it, like 500 million? It was crazy. It was like an insane amount of money. Bob Dylan did the same thing. ZZ Top.
Justin Bieber just did that.
Yeah, and there's a reason,
I heard that. Yeah,
like digitally, there has to be a reason why investors are buying these things that have been around for an extremely long amount of time. And you would think, in some manner or fashion, right? Because artists are not making a lot of money on royalties because everything comes from Spotify and like iTunes and stuff like that, right? So the royalty streams for that stuff is not what it used to be from like radio. right? But you still have investors buying up the rights for all of this music, and there's got to be like some sort of they have to have some sort of, I don't want to say like end game plan, but there has to be some plan for what they're going, how they're going to make that money back, and they have to be confident that they're going to do it, because they wouldn't be spending that level of money if there wasn't some avenue that they had in mind. And that, to me, in comics, granted, we've been on paper since the 1920s, whatever, right? And we're still mostly on paper, right? We do have some digital stuff, but you're still talking about what is, last time I heard, was like 8% of sales of the industry is digital. So that to me is where there's, a sort of little bit of hiccup in kind of how all that stuff works, and what goes on with how do we figure that out? NFTs or some other form that we don't know that's coming.
I think in the end, I'm old. I just like to touch things, and I cannot. I think Richard was talking about. I can't wrap my head around owning a piece of digital something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, apart from it's the idea.
But that's because we're old.
Yeah,
younger generations, they love all that digital shit, right? We're old school, so we need to like smell it, touch it, I
like to have a tactile sense of something, but whatever.
Yeah.
Listen, in no way, shape, or form am I knocking those who like digital. I'm not. I'm just simply saying that for me, look, I live in a Chicago apartment. It would behoove me to go digital. I would have more room to live. I'm not. I mean, it's a question of practicality. Even I would probably be better off with a digital comic book collection.
Yeah. I'm kind of in the halfway point right now of that whole transition, kind of.
See,
because like you said, space is a huge issue.
Yeah. Space is an issue for me, having back issues to get rid of. My wife is freaking out because I'm taking up some space downstairs. But yeah, it's interesting. I didn't do PDFs of Blam and Glam till issue 3, I think it was, and a friend of mine, Gary Park of Underglow Comics. Sorry, Gary Parkin of Underglow Comics. Because this is what I love about this industry is you build connections. He was on Kickstarter and found me, and then we've been, inspire each other, working across different things as well. And he was like, dude, offer PDFs because some people just want them. And it's great because people are buying physicals and PDFs, and they can get the PDF while the physical is en route from them, from UK to America.
I sold more issues of the omnibus on PDF than I did physical.
Yeah. Well, there's 3 reasons I think PDFs work. 1, space, right? People have to start going digital because they just don't have the space. 2, the shipping costs over the last 2 years has skyrocketed. So if you're not mailing within country, it's a fortune to send it. And 3, the PDFs always tend to be slightly cheaper. So if you're on a budget, you could get the same book at a slightly discounted price for the, in most cases, right, than the physical copy, because you're taking out the printed aspect of it, so you save on that cost. So you can.
Our omnibus was $125 for the physical, $35 for the PDF.
Yeah, see, like if you're on a budget, you could still get great stories at a fraction of the cost if you go digital. But the digital prices are climbing because now on Kindle, I've noticed. I used to be able to get a book for about $1 to $1.50 cheaper on Kindle than when I bought it at the comic shop, and now it's pretty much almost the same price. Like the Kindle prices have almost climbed up to the same price as a physical copy of the book.
I've noticed too that
they
raised the price on the last issue of runs. It'll be like $1.99, $1.99 in the last issue, $3.99.
Yeah,
I've noticed that for a few series.
Yeah. Well, I didn't want to
first one's free.
get you guys off topic too far, but I was just curious to hear your guys' thoughts because it's been traveling. It's been traveling social media quite a bit the last month or so. So, yeah, I like hearing creators' thoughts on that stuff.
It's interesting because if you use it in the right way, it could be reference for you to draw from. but I much prefer to gather reference because then I know the camera angles and everything I'm after. It's interesting, right? In issue 5, as I said, Joe and Elle were in issue 4. In issue 5, there's a couple of people who paid to be in one of the pages. I won't show it because it'll spoil the story, but somebody then got in touch the issue before and said, my wife and I, well, my wife was, we always wanted for her to be in a comic. Can she be a character? And so we wrote a very specific thing, which meant she got about 5 or 6 pages. And the advantage for me was they shot her. So they photographed her at the angle. I did the sketches and said, I need these angles. And then they photographed her, and then I could work from that as reference for the story. I still had to make it feel like it connected with the rest of the art, but it was handy reference. But yeah, it's it's like, like a friend of mine sent me one of those figures you could pose. I really should start using them because it'd be really handy. But I end up going like, yeah, it's not quite there. I try and find another bit of reference that might help. But it might be useful, but not for me. I think it's too limited because you can't actually say where you want. I treat, and Jeremy and Chuck are probably the same. I treat a comic almost like a film. So I'm like, right, I've placed the camera here. This is the movement. This is the angle. This is the lighting I'm after. And you just can't get that if you type in an algorithm.
No. In fact, my scripts, when I write a script, I'm using those terminology. I'm using bird's eye view, worm's eye view. Yeah. I'm using, stage left, stage right. I'm using those kind of descriptions because the person that receives it is a human being and can I just think the whole idea of AI art is it's just born out of corporate greed. I just think corporations don't want to pay artists anymore, and I think the biggest single customer of AI art will in the future be corporations doing stuff that they don't have to pay Jeremy and Richard for anymore. And and my answer to that is fuck them. And that's just the way it is because they. I'm not going to get political, but Jesus, have they the corporations haven't made enough money yet? Now you want to screw the artists along with your minimum wage guys? Bite me. Screw that.
Yeah, for sure.
Totally.
Yeah, they don't have enough with 3-4 houses. They need that extra one, right?
Yeah, but I think AI art is born out of corporate greed.
Yeah. For sure.
Also, I wonder if it's also, and I'm not saying people are lazy, but a laziness to go and experiment. Go and try painting something yourself. Go and try drawing or interpreting something. And I think that's what comes out of the style. Like Jeremy will interpret something from your script totally different to somebody else, and they'll be saying amazing about it. And the minute it's just like, if you lose the ability to study, examine, look at what's around us and interpret as art, and then apply that to a script, to a story, then it's nothing, is it? And I think this is what's great about when we do stuff. I mean, used to, it sounds like you got quite a cool dynamic because you're creating together. Unfortunately, I'm competing against myself in my head. Like, part of me's the writer and part of me's the artist. But sometimes we come to an amicable decision, and sometimes it's like, that's not what I thought I was going to be doing at all. But it's good that because you grow each other, you push that stuff as a team. I think further than I can, and I think that's what's quite exciting about it.
I love the collaboration in comics. I think that if I could draw, which I cannot, I think I would still collaborate. I would only draw other people's written comics if I could draw, and I would only write comics that other people draw, because the collaboration part is so fun, and shit gets caught. There are just things that happen in the collaborative process that maybe the inker or the colorist or the artist or something looks at something differently and says, what if we did this? And that is first of all, that's lost in AI. Second of all, I think like I said, I absolutely am jealous of those who can draw and write. But I think if I could, I would not do them both at the same time. That's just my feeling, you know. I would miss the collaborative part of it.
Yeah. It's like when they talk about films, you know, when you make a film or a TV program, 3 films are made, aren't they? There's the one that's written, the one that's directed, and the one that's edited.
Yeah.
And it's that collaboration that does, and the vision changes. But the vision, I think all pretty much improves, you know, which is quite cool.
I think so. I don't think I don't think one page of anything I've written in the past year and a half has come out exactly like I envisioned it. And the only thing I can say to that is thank God, you know, because I it's all better. It's all better now, you know. You know, Jeremy makes every page of Monsters and Midways better. And then Nicholas, the colorist, does. And then Tom Orzechowski, the literal world record holder for lettering a book. He's lettered every issue of Spawn. He's in the Guinness Book of World Records. He's our letterer. Every single person, Nick Goodwin, every single person in this process makes every page better. And I just love the collaborative process.
Cool.
I don't know how we are for time, Elle. And I don't know if you guys have any plans with your family. Your wives are coming in and harking on you. How long are you going to be? So I don't know if you guys need to get somewhere or if you have plans with your families. So
I'm waiting on a text from my wife to tell me when to go and pick her up from, like, she's out for a restaurant, out for a meal restaurant. But apart from that, I'm good. At some point, I'm just going to be like, click, go. But, you know, I'll chill out for a bit.
No, because we've already taken up half an hour of your time. We don't want to impose too much on you.
Hey, we're all talking comics. I bet we could all sit here all day, probably.
Yeah.
That's what I love about it.
But I will probably my mom's probably going to come down because I'm visiting my mom in Prince Edward Island, so she's probably going to come down and be like, "What the hell are you doing down there?"
No, I think we
to visit your mother.
And I'm surprised we didn't get the creepy basement
video.
Sorry, Phil. I didn't want to trigger you. He has a thing with basements, but Joe sent the funniest video of where he was stuck to sleep for the weekend.
Well, it's because we have a lot of companies, so I told my mom to give like the guest room to her friends, and I said, just find me a mattress, throw it in the basement in one of the back rooms, and so it turned out to be a pretty creepy place to spend the next 4 days.
3 armchairs facing the bed for me. That's where I was like, nah, we're watching.
I can feel there's a comic book story coming out of this. The
you know what would make a good comic?
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you guys want to plug your projects coming up? You can plug your convention again, where you're going to be coming up to sell your book, where people can go meet you, buy some stuff off you, get those metal covers. Richard, too, I will let you plug your Kickstarter again before you go to let everyone know what's going on, what you have out there. So get at it.
Richard, you want to go?
Yeah, I can do. Thank you. Sorry, I'm totally unprepared. Issue 6, 1 to 6 available. First edition still on Kickstarter. It's been going almost 2 days. It's crazy. We're already at 189 backers. I think last time we got to 350. So 28 days to go. You can get the standard issue at a nice affordable price. Even I think it's only like £8 plus £5 or £6 shipping to anywhere in the world. So it's nice and easy to get hold of. If you're after a more bespoke cover, there's lots of options available. Figures, posters, T-shirts, gold leaf covers as well. 24 karat gold leaf. I'd like to embellish them for them. I think 2 of them are still available. There's loads on there. That's it. Just check us out. And if you look at us and go, hey, that's a no, that's cool. At least you stopped by and took a look. That's me.
Nice. All right, Chuck
I'm following you,
and
I'm
Jeremy,
going to
man.
back
What?
you today.
Yeah, nice. See, you got an extra backer.
Well,
There you go.
Jeremy,
Awesome.
you want to?
Yeah, so we got Monsters and Midways. That is going to be in stores, in comic shops, everywhere, hopefully. March 29th. That a couple days later, that same weekend, we will be at C2E2. And we will have both issues there for sale. We'll have some stuff at our booth. And I actually don't know what all we're going to have at our booth now that we're talking about it. Band of Bards will be there with the booth. And I think there might actually be a Chicago-based retailer. Is that correct, Chuck? You said he's going to be there with what looks like an incentive cover. So he will actually have a unique cover available at his booth. So Monsters and Midways will be available at 3 different booths at C2E2.
And we'll have
which shop did you say was going to have that cover?
Dark Tower.
Dark Tower.
And if anybody is coming to C2E2 and you're watching this show, drop by our table to get an invite to the there's a bar called Liars Club, which is in the comic itself. And the bartender at Liars Club is essentially the person who is Kessler, the wizard, is based on. So you can meet Kessler in person at Liars Club the Friday night.
That's cool.
That is so cool.
C2E2, and we're having a big issue release party. There'll be some metal bands there, and Band of Bards stuff will be for sale. There'll be comics. I think Nick hired Laura Helsby, who's the artist of Claims Adjuster, to do a weird T-shirt, and I think he's going to talk to Jeremy about another T-shirt. And so I think I think those are the plans. But there's going to be a big ass party, and if you guys are in Chicago, please come to it. Drop by our table and get an invite, and we'll tell you where the party is. And then other than that, it's just the Claims Adjuster, which is coming out a little bit after, a couple months after Monsters and Midways. And like I said, that's with Laura Helsby and Neil Van Antwerpen. Swords and Sorcery in Chicago, fun, kind of over-the-top sword and sorcery book is Monsters and Midways. Dark, serial killer, violent, not for kids, The Claims Adjuster, both books. Band of Bards, Devil's Due. I'm done.
Excellent. Excellent.
Phil, do
Sounds
you
like
have
fun, man.
Yeah.
Philip?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for having me.
Oh yeah, anytime.
Thank you as well. This is always fun on House of Nerd, and also Joe on Pink Buzz as well. It's cool there as well. So.
Oh, Joe, do you want to plug anything coming up?
I didn't come prepared for that, but usually Friday nights we do our show, The Pink Buzz, on Friday nights. You can catch that live stream on YouTube. We talk about comics, music, shows, movies, a little bit of everything. So if you want to come hang out on Friday nights, then you can check us out on Friday nights at The Pink Buzz.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely going to do it. This is one of the first podcasts I ever watched, House of Nerds. So it's a special one for me.
Thank you. And I'm sure it's because of me. No.
And you're one of my favorite comic book people, period.
And also, let's give a shout out to Comics R Us and Mark R. or K. I hope we talked enough comics for you on this episode without going off topic. And that's all. I'm going to hit end broadcast. Or I think we have an outro. I'm pretty sure we have an outro. All right.
Thanks for coming, guys.